I'm trading my sorrows, I'm trading my shame, I'm laying it down for the joy of the Lord. Hey! Woo! I'm trading my sickness, I'm trading my pain, I'm laying it down for the joy of the Lord. Sing it again, say it. I'm trading my sorrow, trading my shame, I'm trading my shame, laying it down, I'm laying it down for the joy of the Lord. God, we exchange today. Lay it down. I'm trading my sickness, trading my pain, I'm trading my pain, laying it down, I'm laying it down for the joy of the Lord. Gonna hear the joy of the Lord today. So lay it all down, 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 lay it all down at the feet of Jesus. Yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, amen. Hey, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, amen. Come on, someone say it again. Say, I'm trading my sorrow, trading my shame, I'm trading my shame. I'm laying at the feet of Jesus. Joy, trading my sickness. I'm trading my sickness, trading my pain, I'm trading my pain, laying it down, I'm laying it down for the joy of the Lord. Come on, somebody help me say, lay it down, lay it all 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 down at the feet of Jesus. Yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, amen. Yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, amen, amen. Say yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, amen, amen, amen. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. From the bottom of my heart to the depths of my soul, I say yes, Lord. Completely yes. And my soul says yes. Come on, somebody help us say yes, Lord. God, we lay down our ideas today. We lay down our preferences. And we say yes to you, Jesus. To the depths of my soul. Yes, Lord. Completely yes. Completely yes. My soul says yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, yes, Lord. We agree. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, yes, Lord. Amen. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, yes, Lord. Every word. Yes, Lord. Yes, yes, Lord. Amen. Come on, one more time. We say yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, yes, Lord.
Psalms. And before we read about Psalms, we've been talking about frequency for the last couple of weeks. We've been talking about, are you on the right frequency? And, you need to adjust your frequency to be on the right frequency of God. A lot of us, we need to adjust our frequency. And when I was doing research on frequency, I didn't even realize that our bodies are made up of frequencies. We are made up of frequencies, and our phones, our cell phones are on frequencies. When you call somebody, I don't care the distance between the call, you join with that person no matter where they are, and you two get on the same frequency. That is the only way that you can communicate, is when you connect with somebody else's frequency, and you two become one frequency. Well, that's the way we communicate with God. We communicate with him because we are created in his image and after his likeness. And when we talk to God, we get on his frequency. He doesn't get on ours. We get on his frequency because we were created from him, by him. And so when I was reading about frequencies, I found out some more stuff. And we understand that when we look at the frequency of the human body, our frequency is between 62 and I think it's 70, 62 and 70 megahertz. And so that is where our healthy frequency of the human body is. But when we do things like drugs causes the frequency of your body to drop. Being over intoxicated with alcohol, that causes the frequency of your body to drop. And when the frequency of your body drops, that causes your body to be open to diseases, to viruses, because now you're at an unhealthy frequency. And so I was reading about this researcher who did a research concerning frequency. So allow me to read this, because this is going to segue into what we're talking about today, coming from Psalms 27. He writes this, he says, humans have an optimal frequency, as does everything else in the universe, that occurs when each of the cells in our body vibrates at the frequency it was designed to. So our body, the frequency in our body, it vibrates because that's how it was designed to vibrate. Watch this. Bruce Taniel, which is the researcher, famous researcher and developer of Taniel technology, found that a healthy body resonates at a frequency of 62 to 70 megahertz. Now, hold on with me, all you non-science lovers. We need to understand the science of a thing to understand the spiritual part of who we are and how we were made up. And so I'm reading this because you need to know who you are. You need to know how you were made. You need to know how you were created. Science, I love science. Science only reveals what God created. Science is the discovery of what God created. That's all science does. It only discovers what God created. And so when I was reading this, it broke down who we are as a body, as a human being. And so watch this. So he says that a healthy body resonates at a frequency of 62 to 70 megahertz. And when your frequency drops to 58 megahertz, that is when the disease starts. So when the frequency of your body drops to an unhealthy 58 megahertz, that's when you are open to diseases and viruses. And we're going to get into COVID-19 in a minute. Bacteria, viruses, and diseases each have their own low frequency that influences your energy field. Hear me today, people of God. Bacteria, viruses, and diseases each have their own low frequencies. So the viruses that are out there, the diseases that are out there, they're resonating on their own frequency. So when your frequency of your body that was created to operate from 62 to 70 megahertz, when your frequency dropped because of what you were doing, you dropped to the virus level that is lower. And you opened up your body to be infected by viruses, by diseases, by bacteria, because your frequency has dropped. Because you take that one important part of who you are, a will, and you will yourself to involve yourself in things that you were not created to handle. Meaning smoke was never intended to be in a person's body. So when you inhale smoke from a cigarette, from weed, whatever it is, it was never intended to be in a person's body. So therefore, you lower the frequency of how you were created to be, and you open yourself up to viruses, diseases, and bacteria because it was never intended to be in your body. We were created by God, a masterpiece by God, to live and not die. We were created by God to walk in victory, not in defeat. We were created by God to be the head and not the tail, to go over and not under. But because of your will, you decide to do things that is contrary to the word of God. And because of that, it becomes physical. But it started in the spiritual first. It started in your mind first and then materialized in your body. God, this is some deep stuff. Get it today. You got to get this. And so now watch this. He continues to write, as your frequency drops due to environmental and physiological factors, your immune system is compromised. He said your immune system is compromised and opportunistic bacteria and viruses are able to wreak havoc on your body, making you more susceptible to disease. It makes you more susceptible to disease. Now watch this. This is good too. Trapped emotions stored in our organs, muscles, and tissues as pockets of electromagnetic energy also have negative influences on our well-being. So what he's saying is your emotions, meaning what's going on with you emotionally, also has tremendous effect on who you are and how you operate. Which leads us to Proverbs when the writer wrote, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. If you allow your emotions to run wild on you, then that will affect your body. When you cannot control, and this is why the Bible teaches us to give thanks with a grateful heart. Just give thanks. Give thanks. I know that life gets tough, and we're going to get into David in a minute. David went through a lot of stuff. He went through a lot of stuff. And we all too, we go through stuff. We have pitfalls, we have speed bumps, we have potholes that we go. We have a lot of stuff that we endure and that we go through. But at the end of the day, you have to know where your source lies. And you have to flip your emotions and give thanks. No matter what it is, you have to give thanks. Even at the point of death, you have to give thanks with a grateful heart. Because if you don't, your emotions will run wild on you and cause havoc in your life. And will cause your frequency to drop at a bacterial level. My God. Are your emotions intact? Or are you easily influenced? Are your emotions running you crazy? This is why stress is a silent killer. Stress is a silent killer. It doesn't have signs. It doesn't show up on a report. No, it's emotional. It's spiritual. Stress is a silent killer. This is why you got to reverse the thing. And the best way to reverse that thing is to give thanks. Yeah. So now let's talk about maintaining a high vibrational frequency. Let's talk about flipping it. He writes this: ideally, you want to be at a high vibrational or be a high vibrational being to attain peak health and wellness for your mind, body, and soul. So, what can you do to raise your vibration? What can you do? And remember, this is science. What can you do to change the frequency to make it better? Because remember, this is just Google stuff. You can research on your own. We all operate at a frequency, a healthy frequency. We were all created to run at a certain frequency, which is a healthy frequency. But our will, when we decide to do things that is contrary to how God created us to operate, then we open up ourselves to unhealthy things. And when it becomes, hear this, when it became physical, when you start seeing the signs of your body deteriorating, it started well before you saw it. Wow. It started well before you saw it because it starts internally first. I remember when we got COVID, my whole family, when we got COVID, it didn't materialize physically first. Our internal organs started, going through these motions, and we started feeling on the inside first before it became physical. Eventually, once it became full bloom, my God, we was restricted to the bed. Couldn't move. I was popping pain pills like chiclets, like vitamins every day. Because I was taking a HUD class at the same time I had COVID. Anybody know about the HUD class, being a HUD counselor? My God, there's so much stuff with HUD. And so I'm taking this class at the same time I had COVID. And in order for me to be, understanding what I was trying to learn, I had to take pain medicine because my body was racked with pain. But my point to the whole matter is that it started inside first before it materialized physically. It started inside. So he writes this. He says, first, let's think about everything you come into contact with. Hear this. Listen or pay attention to everything that you come into contact with, whether you ingest it, whether you listen to, or whether you think about. Everything that you come into contact with, you need to pause. We need to pause right here and everybody evaluate everything that you come into contact with, whether you take it in, whether you eat it, whether you listen to it. You're going to get up here and preach from the first lady over there talking about the lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and pride of life. That's the Trinity. Yeah, and so we need to evaluate everything that we take in during the course of a workday. Everything that you take in, all of the conversations that you have, all of the music that you listen to or don't listen to, everything that you eat. What are you eating that is causing damage to your body? What are you eating? Because whatever you're eating is also eating you. Whatever you listen to, whatever you, all of these things, whatever you think about, he wrote whatever you think about. What are you constantly thinking? Something that you did not get over last week, or who hurt you just yesterday. You're constantly thinking about that, which is causing damage to the inside of who you are. And it's actually lowering your frequency and how you were created to operate here on the earth. God said that I came that you may have life and have it more abundantly, but you cannot live the abundant life because of what's coming on the inside of you. Am I talking to anybody today? You can't live the abundant life or live a great life because of what's coming inside of you. And it is affecting you emotionally, it's affecting your body. And then the devil causes you to get on a cycle and he puts you on repeat because you haven't broken that cycle. And so this is where he interrupts your life. He still kills and destroys because he puts you on an unending cycle because you haven't learned from your lesson, even though he has. He learned, oh man, they haven't learned not to stop doing that, so I'm going to keep them on this vicious cycle. Oh, they haven't learned from the conversation that they had with this person the last time that is causing them headaches at night. So I'm going to keep them on this conversation. Yeah, they haven't learned from what they ate last week that gave them a stomach ulcer or a stomach cramps, and they still eating it. Oh, let's keep them on this vicious cycle. Or what they ate that caused them high blood pressure or affected their sugar. Yeah, they haven't learned yet. This is what the devil's sitting back telling you. They haven't learned yet, so keep them on that. Give them a taste for it again. I'm not just preaching about it. I was a client too. Yeah. But now I had to become more aware of what's affecting me physically. So everything I eat now, I pay attention to how my body reacts to it. What I listen to, I pay attention to how my body reacts to it. The people that I have conversations with, if you're not affecting me to grow, then we don't have nothing to talk about. Not unless God has assigned me to you to help you, to pull you out of whatever you're in. But hear this though. If you don't learn for the instructions that the man of God gives you, then eventually I have to cut you off and allow God to deal with you. Because if helping you was hurting me, I got to cut you off. Because apparently you haven't learned yet. Yeah, you haven't learned yet. And the enemy has you still on this vicious cycle. And because of the lust of your flesh, because you cannot control the lust of your flesh is going to eventually kill you, unfortunately. And so he says this. He says, in order for us to live a better life, we have to be careful of what we're listening to, what we're eating. He gets into the healing cycle of the body. And he says this, all of these things affect the frequency of your body. And we all know and understand that we were created by God. We were created by God, and God has made such a masterpiece, man. Every time I do studies on the body, it just blows my mind because we are the best creation on the face of this earth. The way that your body is made up is amazing. It is amazing. And so God has created us in such a way that your decisions can affect you in a good way or a bad way. The decisions that we make as people can affect us in a great way or a bad way, but the choice is up to you. This is why when we appear before God and we stand before him, we're going to have to give an account of all of our decisions that we made right now. We can't stand before God and say, well, because this person kept making me do this, or this person just enticed me to do that. No, everybody has a will. Everybody has a free will. And when you place your will in motion to decide to do a certain thing, that's because you did it, not the person. Nobody made you do nothing. Nobody can make you do nothing. Nobody can make you take a needle, put it in your arm, and inject some poison into your veins. Nobody can make you do that. You decided to do it. You decided to do it. Nobody will make you take a cigarette, put it in your mouth, and ingest smoke that was never supposed to be in your body. You are killing yourself slowly. And eventually, it's going to materialize physically. but you just don't see it yet. So because you don't see it with your eyes physically, you keep doing it and not even realizing that it's affecting you internally. But eventually, hear me, people, eventually it's going to give way to the physical. It's inevitable. Because certain things were not meant to be ingested in your body. The lust of the flesh. But because you cannot control your flesh, it's killing you. And eventually, it's going to give way to what has already been there. It's already been at work previously, but it just hasn't materialized physically yet. Listen, we were created by a master. We were created by God to fulfill life, to live and not die. We were created by God. Jeremiah 29:11, he said, Jeremiah says this, that God said, I know the plan that I have for you, saith the Lord. I have a plan for you. There was a plan before you were even birthed in the earth. There was a plan. I know the plans that I have for you, saith the Lord. There is a plan for you, a plan of success and not failure, a plan of a good future and not a bad. There is a plan for all of us, all of his creation. We just got to get on God's frequency. We got to get back on God's frequency so that we can live out the right plan that he has for us. So that we can live out the right plan that he has for us. Because I don't know about you, but I want to enjoy life. My God, I want to enjoy life in all of its fullness. I want to enjoy life. Now, enjoying life doesn't mean that it's going to be absent of problems. But you have to know who to go to when you don't know what to do. You got to stay on the right frequency even in the midst of problems. We all struggle. We all go through, just like David. David was a man fully involved with the affairs of his life. He was fully involved. He had enjoyed great success in his life. Yet that success brought with it problems. Sometimes having success in life can bring problems. Yeah. David had personal problems. He had family problems. He had, other people problems. David had problems. David had problems. If you want to complain about your world or your life, go read about David. David had serious problems. And on more than one occasion, there were people who were set against David, seeking to take his life. Now remember, David was anointed to be king. But from the time he was anointed to be king, he had to live out the process on his way to being king. And then when he became king, that was just the beginning. So everybody, I don't care how successful you are, I don't care how much money you have in your bank, how much money you don't have in the bank, how healthy you are or unhealthy you are, everybody has problems. How many degrees you have behind your name, how many degrees you don't have behind your name. If you live in low housing or no housing at all, it doesn't matter. You will not be excused from not having problems. But I'm here to help you today. Yeah, help you today. You want to know how I'm going to help you? It's to change your stinking thinking. Change your thinking about who you are, why you are, and where you're going. You have to change up here first before it materializes here. You have to change up here, the central processing unit between those two ears that you have. That's the central area right there. Until you change here, it will never materialize here, outside of where you are. Until you change here, you got to change the way you think. Get a grateful heart. Become thankful. That's the first part. Yeah, you might not have everything you want right now, but you got air in your lungs. You're breathing. You're breathing. You have another chance to make it. You got to know that you were created for such a time as this. You got to know, like Jeremiah wrote, that God said that I know the plans, that you got to know that you're involved in God's plans for your life. My God, we went to the movies last night, my wife and I, and this movie about the American underdog. It's a great, clean movie. It will inspire you. It is about Kurt Warner, the quarterback, who he was the quarterback for the Rams. His story is amazing. Without going into all of the details of the story, one part in the story, he knew that he was created to play football. He knew that he was created to play football. It was a desire of his from a child. And he's going through the whole process. He plays in college, and he's at a lower college, whereas the NFL doesn't look at colleges, because you have different levels of colleges. And if you're not at that high-ranking college, no NFL rep is going to come to your school looking to recruit you. So he was, I forget whether it was a D1 or whatever, but it was a lower-ranking college. Okay, so D1 is the highest rank, so he wasn't at a D1. So he had to be at a D3. Ranking college, because he was at the lowest ranking college. And his friend said, look, you might as well get another plan, because ain't nobody coming in here looking for you. As a matter of fact, you haven't even played enough games for anybody to see you. God, this story was amazing. He said, you haven't even played enough games for anybody to see you and evaluate your game. So Kurt Warner, he had a passion. Let me tell you something. When you have a passion for something, that is a clue that God created you for that. When there is a drive in you, when there's a passion for a certain thing, you better take note that that is what you were created to do. One of the things that you were created to do. And Kurt knew it. He knew it. And so watch this. So long story short, he gets, when they were going through the draft, he meets this young lady who was a born-again believer. He meets this young lady, and she's, she loves God. But Kurt, it was apparent that, he didn't know about God. Let's put it that way. He didn't know about God. And so, and because of her lifestyle, it kind of drew him in. You got to live the life, people. You got to live the life, because your lifestyle is a testimony to somebody else. You can't act all hellish throughout the week and Sunday expect to be the light of Christ. Oh, no, it's a lifestyle, people. It is a lifestyle. You can't act like the devil from Monday through Saturday and think that you're going to be the light of Christ on Sunday. Oh, no, it don't work like that. God is not a part-time lover. You can't connect to God on a part-time basis. No, you cannot connect to God on a part-time basis. It got to be a full-time thing.